Welcome. As we're arriving here, I would just like to take a moment to honor survivors. Come on in, find a seat. Thank you so much for being here today. I would like to take just a moment to honor survivors of interpersonal violence, as well as those who did not survive the abuse at the hands of a partner or family member. We honor them for their lived experience, their raw courage to create a new life for themselves and their loved ones when they can, and their collective road to healing. This morning, as I was reflecting on this annual event, I was reminded of the reason, though, for these moments of appreciation, and it's to recognize you today. We are here today to honor the brave warriors who get up every day to come to work to help survivors of interpersonal violence, each in our own respective ways. Anyone who has done this work for even a spell knows how hard it can be. The challenges include cumulative secondary trauma, complexities of DV dynamics that can increase risk to those that we are trying to protect, caseloads which can be unmanageable, and at times the tide doesn't seem to be receding, and the sheer number of new victims is daunting. I'm reminded of my friend Ben, who's the DA in Wilmington, North Carolina, tells a story about starfish. And perhaps you've heard this story, but there was a tide, an unusually warm tide that had washed a bunch of starfish, thousands and thousands of starfish up onto the shore where they were drying up and dying. And there was a little boy about 8 years old running along the beach, frantically grabbing starfish and throwing them back into the water as quickly as he could, even though there were miles of starfish that were stranded. And there were a couple old fishermen standing there laughing at the kid and saying, "Kid, come on, you'll never make a difference. There's too many of them." And he leaned over in front of them and picked one up and tossed it and said, "Sure made a difference for that one." Similarly, we're doing what we can to make a difference for as many of these people as we can. And to that end, I would thank you for your steadfastness and your bravery and for making a difference for as many as you can. At this time, I have a couple housekeeping things. One is we have a ginormous cake at the back that I would like you to stop and get and take some, either have some here or take it back to your office before you leave. I would like to thank two people in particular who are behind the scenes working hard to rejuvenate our silent witness program and have been creating new silent witnesses in the names of some of our domestic violence homicide victims that have happened in the last few years. They know who they are, and I thank them deeply. At this time, I would like to introduce Tanya Campbell. She's a senior crime victim advocate for Missoula County. She's not just an advocate, she's also an educator, an example, and a spokesperson for victims across Montana. And she's going to share a few words with you for today's event.
Hi, as Kirsten said, I don't know that I would call myself a warrior, but I've been doing this work for 20 plus years. And I've seen many, many changes over the time of doing this work. And I just want to highlight some of the great ones, which is that we now have better collaboration than we've ever had before with law enforcement, prosecutors, advocates, even probation and parole. And with that, we've also done a ton of training for folks. And I guess the biggest example would be strangulation, which is a huge thing that happens within domestic violence. But because of the training, I know for a fact that we have saved at least one life. The Crime Victim Advocate Program is where I work. We so far, just this year, have seen 2,500 plus clients, and a good portion of that are domestic violence. And we know best practices is early intervention and trying to get people resources, and that is one of the things that our program does. Another thing, we don't just focus on victims. We also run a program called, we all call it FIVIES, but it's Family Violence Intervention and Educational Session, which first and second time partner family member assault defendants are required to take. One of the highlights of that program is the ACEs study is talked about in there, which is, if you don't know, adverse childhood experiences. It's a big research project, and it talks about how people are impacted by adverse childhood experiences. And so one of the things we hope is that defendants will take that in either for their own recognition of their childhood experiences or how what they're doing might impact their children. I think that's a great thing. And then just lastly, I would like to say that most domestic violence victims of homicide do not reach out for services. And we probably all know someone or have been in contact with someone who we know is experiencing domestic violence. And I would encourage you, just in that situation, to go ahead and reach out to an advocate. We can give you some helpful tips about how you might be able to help your loved one. And maybe we can save another life. Because ultimately what we really, really want is for everyone to feel safe in their own homes. Thank you.
So at this time, I would love to introduce to you my hard-working core of victim witness advocators, victim witness coordinators. I've got Cheryl Patch, Kiki Swingley, and Sierra Lake. They are some of the hardest working folks in my office. We're proud of them. They do critical work, and they are the frontline contact between prosecutors and victims. They work collaboratively with the Crime Victim Advocates Office and are points of contact for our law enforcement partners as well. So I'd like you to please welcome them. And at this time, Cheryl will come up and introduce this year's Achievement Awards.
It is a pleasure for us to review the nominations and read about all the incredible work that is happening in our community for victims of domestic violence. This year, the descriptive words that jumped out for us are provides significant service, offers guidance, tireless efforts, exemplary service, exceptional dedication, problem solves, calm and nurturing presence, removes barriers to healing, dedicated to relieving pain and suffering, non-judgmental care, exceptionally compassionate, incredible spirit, passion to improve safety, empathetic tone, works diligently, sensitive, committed to collaborating, willingness to dig deeper, establishes rapport, genuinely cares. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the category in the award recipient, and then I will give you I will review some of the highlights from the nomination form. And then if you could hold your applause, and then that person can come forward. and Kiki will give the award. And if you'd like to stand over here for pictures, and then maybe we can get a group picture at the end. This year, Volunteer of the Year is Nancy Berg. It gives me great pleasure to nominate Nancy Berg to be considered for the Missoula County Domestic Violence Awareness Award in recognition of her tireless efforts and exemplary service to survivors of intimate and partner violence. Nancy's selfless nature and kind and caring instincts shine through as a volunteer. Nancy has been an invaluable asset to the YWCA as a volunteer in our Pathways program since 2021. Nancy consistently displays compassion and exceptional dedication to crisis counsel, safety plan, and resource referrals to individuals fleeing domestic violence. In particular, Nancy steps in to de-escalate heightened situations, consistently problem solves with advocates and team members, and has a calm and nurturing presence. Congratulations, Nancy. Yeah, if you want. You can go sit down. Our next category is Probation and Parole Officer of the Year. Amy Bakerovsky has demonstrated leadership by being a key player in implementing a new supervision strategy in the Missoula community for domestic violence offenders adjudicated for their crimes. This supervision strategy is based off evidence-based practices that are victim-centered and uses trauma-informed care models. Her passion to improve the safety for survivors in the community is admirable. Within the last couple of months since this position has been approved, she has worked diligently to communicate with survivors and offenders in a respectful and empathetic tone. Congratulations, Amy.
Thank you.
Our next category is Victim Advocate. Joni Kicking Woman. Joni has been working with the crime victim advocates for 8 years. Joni has showed dedication and compassion while working with survivors. Joni also contributes a lot of her time to working with our Indigenous clients and is committed to collaborating on such issues like the missing murdered Indigenous peoples. When seeking orders of protection in domestic violence cases, victims have commented that Joni is a great source of strength and support. She is known for not being easily intimidated by the respondents at those hearings. Congratulations, Joni. Congratulations. Our next award is for Pro Bono Attorney of the Year. And this year the award goes to Emily Lucas. I have had the pleasure to know Emily since her law student days when she was recognized for her pro bono activities as a law student. Since her graduation and entry into private practice, she has given countless hours to assisting women, most of whom were victims of domestic violence, in their various dealings with the court. I saw her represent clients in contested custody cases, as well as her service as a guardian ad litem. Most of this work was either pro bono or modest means representation. Since the opening of the YWCA Meadowlark facility, which now houses the domestic violence shelter, Emily has supervised a legal clinic of law students that provide legal services for those living at the shelter as they navigate hearings on orders of protection, dissolution cases, or contested custody matters. Without Emily's guidance, these women would most likely be appearing pro se and face many challenges. Emily has provided significant service to the district courts and more particularly to these women who need such assistance in times of crisis. Congratulations, Emily. Our next recipient cannot be here today. However, her coworker will be receiving the award in her absence. And what is interesting about this is Jackie Towernicki will be receiving the award, and she was the 2020 recipient, and she was unable to be here. So now she can receive it on behalf of one of her coworkers. This is for Healthcare Professional of the Year, and this year the award recipient is Brianna West. Bree is an RN at Partnership Health Center, working full-time at the Poverello Medical Clinic through Partnership. She also works as one of the on-call RNs at First Step Resource Center, caring for victims of acute sexual assault. Bree is one of the most compassionate nurses I have met in my 20-plus years as an RN. She is dedicated to relieving pain and suffering to the clients she cares for day in and day out. Bree is extremely knowledgeable of community resources and how to tap into these resources for the vulnerable population she serves at the Poverello. Bree treats all of her patients with kindness, open, non-judgmental care, and in doing so sees the best in those she cares for. Bree is an exceptionally compassionate to those who have experienced and continue to experience intimate partner violence. She has an incredible spirit to meet individuals where they are at on their own journey and provide safe, compassionate, coordinated, holistic care to the individual person. Congratulations, Bree. Our next award is Judicial Officer of the Year. And this year, our award recipient is Alex Beal. Missoula County Justice of the Peace Alex Beal, through great personal effort, established the Missoula's first domestic violence court in 2022. The court is designed to expedite the legal process for cases involving violence between intimate partners and family members, so that conditions addressing victim safety can be put firmly in place and treatment can be made more accessible to offenders as quickly as possible. The sad truth is that victims' trauma does not stop when the assault ends. Judge Beal has taken up this effort because we as a community can and should do more. More to limit the amount of time that victims are forced to relive horrible events in the criminal justice system, more to see that there is no delay in holding offenders accountable, and more to understand the root causes of domestic violence and remove barriers to healing and potential reconciliation. We could all do more. Judge Beal actually does every day. Congratulations. Congratulations. Our next category is Missoula County Deputy Sheriff, and this year's recipient is Zach Barber. As the first responders to domestic violence calls, sheriff deputies are charged with handling hectic situations. Upon arrival, they have little control over scene or what has transpired. The measure of their competence and efficacy in those situations, how they respond to those factors they cannot control. In recent years, Deputy Barber was the first on-scene responder for 2 separate domestic homicides. Those situations were traumatic and overwhelming. Having worked on one of those cases closely and having familiarity with his response on the other case, I can say without hesitation that Zach remained composed and professional in 2 of the most challenging and emotionally charged situations imaginable. His professionalism, outward calmness, and the competency in the face of chaos deserves recognitions. Victims of domestic violence in Missoula County certainly benefit from his experience. Congratulations, Zach. Congratulations. Our next category is Missoula Police Officer of the Year, and this year's recipient is Lydia Arnold. Officer Arnold is a devoted mother of 3 and dedicated Missoula City police officer with nearly 8 years of experience. During her time with the Missoula Police Department, she has continually shown her dedication to the community by serving in uniform patrol as a school resource officer and the department's public information officer. During the past year, Officer Arnold's detailed reports, willingness to dig deeper beyond what may appear at the face value, and her ability to establish rapport with victims of domestic violence has been observed and continually noted by her peers and supervisors alike. Officer Arnold advocates for victims far beyond what would normally be expected of the responding officer, as she greatly empathizes and genuinely cares about conducting an in-depth and objective investigation while continually ensuring the needs of the victims are addressed. Officer Arnold is highly respected by her peers, supervisors, and continually complimented by members of the community and victims in which she interacts during the course of her duties. Her unwavering commitment to victims' rights and thorough objective investigation is notable and complimentary. Officer Arnold is an example for other officers to emulate regarding domestic violence investigations. Wow. Congratulations, Lydia. Congratulations. Our next category is for Prosecutor of the Year, and it gives me great pleasure to tell you that this year's recipient is Mark Handelman. Mark takes the family dynamic into consideration and understands that interpersonal violence is so sensitive when families are under a microscope due to violence and the criminal justice system involvement. Mark has demonstrated his commitment to helping families affected by violence. When victims have a voice and get a say, they feel empowered. Victims feeling empowered is huge. Mark puts a lot of time and effort into seeking the best possible outcomes for his domestic violence cases. He is thoughtful, patient, but also persistent. I personally believe this persistence has made a remarkable improvement for the safety and security of domestic violence victims. Congratulations, Mark.
Congratulations, everyone, and thank you for your work. A couple of years ago, we started a new award, the Judy Wang Lifetime Achievement Award, to recognize someone who has dedicated the better part of her career responding to domestic violence and improving systems to better serve victims, just as Judy Wang did for the entirety of her career. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity to know Judy, she was a prosecutor, a teacher, a mentor, and a leader. Her work in the evolving field at that time of intimate partner violence touched countless lives and continues to serve as the basis for victim services in this community. Judy started out as a nurse working in the ICU through law school. She worked a couple different legal jobs and then took a position as an assistant city attorney for what she called a transition job that quickly turned out to be her calling and lasted 23 years until her untimely death in 2009. As a city attorney, Judy prosecuted intimate partner violence cases. She started teaching a curriculum about the dynamics of intimate partner violence to interns, to law enforcement. She developed several policies incorporating trauma-informed practices into the structure of investigations, and first brought awareness of the lethality associated with strangulation. She drafted legislation and lobbied for victims' rights. Judy was a founding member of the Missoula Family Violence Council and a leader in developing best practices for responding to interpersonal violence in the state of Montana. She was a legislative strategist, and she was my mentor and would take me to Helena with her to talk to the judiciary committees about life in the trenches. Judy was an amazing person in so many ways, but two of her greatest strengths are embodied in this new award. One, her ability to show up with her whole heart and connect with victims of intimate partner violence, and two, her commitment to building and improving systems. This year, we are presenting this award to someone who also had an innate ability to connect with those in trauma and spent her career filling gaps in systems to better serve all victims. Kathy Dorley. And I'm going to say just a few more things about Kathy before I have her come up, but I want you to know that this started clear back in 1994. She volunteered as a crime victim advocate for the Missoula City County Advocate Office while she was in school obtaining a social work degree. After that, she worked as a social services coordinator at Village Healthcare, where she provided support to and advocated for elderly and disabled residents and their families. But soon enough, she was teaching the class to new employees on respecting residents' rights. Kathy was also a case manager for the Missoula AIDS Council, providing advocacy and emotional support for clients afflicted with the HIV virus, helping them achieve stable housing, health care, and mental health support within our community. Next, Kathy worked as a probation and parole officer for the state of Montana for at least 15 years, where she became a steady and persistent voice for victims of violent felony crime, something quite new at the time. She specialized in preparing pre-sentence investigation reports for the district court. Her passion for this assignment stemmed from her commitment to ensuring that victims were treated with dignity and with the respect that they deserved. She gently would order the judges, and they listened, to listen to victims' voices through the sentencing process. Her practice of giving victims a voice did not go unnoticed, and she was appointed to the Montana Crime Victim Advisory Council. She also received then Attorney General Steve Bullock's Montana Crime Victim Advocate of the Year Award. Kathy retired from probation and parole, and we were lucky enough to have her join our staff as our very first victim witness coordinator, a role that she helped develop and lead for more than 6 years. I've had the opportunity to witness countless times when Kathy didn't just give victims a voice, but she also gave them hope. So it is my deepest honor to offer this Judy Wang Lifetime Achievement Award to Kathy Dorley. Did you want to you want to say a couple words?
I'll say a couple words. Promise I'll be brief. Well, to say that I was taken aback by this award would be a huge understatement. That's because I could name dozens of people who are deserving of this award. And I know this because over the years I've had the privilege of working with amazing coworkers and colleagues from other agencies who have always inspired me to do better and to be better. It always felt like a team effort, and we are so fortunate, as evidenced by all these awards today, to have such a strong team in our community. You know, people used to say to me all the time, I could never do your job. And of course, they referred to working with survivors of some pretty horrible crimes. And yes, working with victims, survivors, can take a huge emotional toll. But the flip side of that is that I have met some of the coolest people in the world. And for every moment that was tough, there was a moment that I was buoyed by someone's resilience, strength, and grace. And you just can't get that in too many jobs. In closing, I just want to say a couple words about Judy Wang. I first met Judy when I was a Cub crime victim advocate volunteer 30-some years ago. Her office was across the hall, and I had the opportunity to learn so much from her. The most important thing that I learned was that I wanted to be just like her. Besides being brilliant, she was generous with her time. She stood up for the people that needed to be stood up for. She approached everything with a compassionate heart. And she was always, always, unapologetically fierce. I still strive to be like Judy to this day, and this award is a huge honor, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So we would like to take a really quick group picture of all of this year's award winners up here in front of the sign and the balloons. Don't forget to take your cake on the way out and a cold frosty beverage. And thank you so much for coming today and for your work and your commitment to survivors of domestic violence. Thank you.